Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Sorry that the June date didn't work out. That's my fault. I had a little medical situation
But
going
we
on.
can say Happy July.
We can say Happy July. So you're going to have two in July. One on the 1st, which is actually the June program, and then we'll do another one in July. How is everyone? I hope you're doing well. Yeah?
Wouldn't you be shocked if they answered back?
Yes, doing very, very well out there. So we are doing a class today called Use Your Resources or Resources. And I think back to the greatest example of using resources that I ever had was working in the hospitality in the restaurant business, especially when you would be hit by reservations that weren't recorded because we used all paper back then. And sometimes someone would answer the phone in the back kitchen and take a reservation, and of course it never made it to the front. And all of a sudden you would come about with 15 or 20 people that you didn't expect were arriving for dinner. And I remember my boss teaching me, Terry, use your resources. What are our resources? We have to, instead of talking about the problem, what resources do we have in front of us right now that we can capitalize on and get through the situation? We could be emotional later, but what are our resources? Think outside. And that's what true leaders do. They have to look at their resources at all times. And we're going to look at resources in many different categories.
Good.
So, when you think of the definition, do you like this? I always get them out of Google. Google everything. You'll see that later in the slides. So talk through that.
A stock or supply of money, materials, staff, and other assets that can be drawn on by a person or organization in order to function effectively.
All right, so let's just think about it. Have we lost power here before? Yes. Have our phones went down? Yes. We've had...
Have we had our main delivery company go on strike before?
Yes. Have we had weather create where we couldn't receive a delivery? Mm-hmm. So...
Have we ran out of M&Ms?
No. Have we run out of M&Ms? Never! M&Ms are locked in. So it's a strategy that can be adopted through adverse circumstances. I mean, we don't want these things to happen. We're not looking forward to it. I think things that when you have to use your resources, it's usually in an unexpected condition. And I think about even in the salon industry, when you have hairdressers in demand and you have a flu virus travel around your salon, that's not easy, right? Because we can't just throw another body at it. They want their hairdresser. And then all the phone calls that take place, and can we get along in touch with the guests to make them aware that we've got a breach of service today because someone took ill? It's tough, but you use your resources.
Well, and I think that's easier said than done sometimes.
Sure, of course it is.
I think many times people in the thick of it, when the pressure's on, when you need your resources the most
they want to
surround you,
yeah.
You don't look to your resources. You just try and do more yourself. There's people that work just go themselves to try and make up the difference. So the other part of this definition is an action or strategy which may be adopted in adverse circumstances.
These make good staff meetings too. What are we going to do if this happens? When you look at enterprise, it means to drive or achieve something, and it refers to the processes used to make decisions, create your business model, and push for continuous improvement in your company. Enterprise includes marketing your brand, maintaining your company image, and outperforming your competition. So when we're thinking about what we need to do, when we're thinking about the resources that we have in our business on a daily basis, that's what we're talking about today. The main resources can be divided up into these 6 categories. So you look at your physical resources. We're going to go through them one at a time, but let's just talk about what they are first. What are our physical resources that we're using on a daily basis? Our human resources, of course, it's our team talent, but there's many contributing factors to our team talent. It could be the people that are doing the service. It could be the support staff. It could be leadership, operations. Then there's intellectual resources, the brand value, property, the proprietary knowledge, and customer databases that are intellectual resources. This one's a big one to many salon owners, and when there is a walkout or something happens, usually they want to put their arms around the intellectual resources first, right? Because so many times they're saying, well, they're trying to steal my client base and they're doing these things. Be careful that you're not taking so much time going after the rear view mirror versus looking in the front and saying, what can we accomplish together? We're going to talk more on that too. Financial resources, kind of self-explanatory. Education resources. You must be an expert in your field and you have to demand more of your people. And then what are your emotional resources of leadership? So let's talk about the physical resources. You know, of course, there's the facility. I walked in this morning and because of all the rain and the wind, we had some garbage in the parking lot. First thing I noticed that a couple of our windows in the front now have water moisture in between the panes. Second thing I noticed. Third thing I noticed is the mats were crooked. Fourth thing I noticed is, are the plants doing okay or do they need watering? How is our landscaping looking right now? Is it fresh? What's the parking lot look like because of hosting a class today? You know, when you walk in and you look at your physical resources, are you prepared for business that day? And of course, location, when you think about your facility is key, but parking and signage. We had a salon, and I've talked about this in other e-learnings, that were apologizing to their customers for years about lack of parking. And finally, I looked at one of the owners and I said, how much longer are you expecting your customers to understand your parking deficit? And when are you going to say, that's it? And the landlord kept stringing her along. You know, parking has to be provided, especially as your staff is growing. That means your staff is taking up more parking spots. Your customers then are taking up more spots. And if they can't find a way to get into you, they're going to be late. And that's going to throw the whole system off.
Well, I know this isn't about parking. That's only an example. But there's a different expectation of parking in the suburbs than there is in the city.
Oh, I bet.
In the city, there is no parking. And so
And they're
to
used
say parking, you have to have it, that doesn't apply in the city. Yeah, people in the city know there's no parking, and they
allow for it.
Yeah, they allow in their day.
We out in the burbs, we don't allow for any of it.
Right.
We're just in time people, if that.
Just in time.
Just in time, at need to know basis. So let's look at your parking and your signage. Look at the salon footprint and the layout. Are we maximizing size? Are we able to get another station in there to create revenue? Are there more services that we can provide? We're getting ready to launch extensions at PSC in another week, and that's going on our footprint that wasn't there before. What did that mean? That our store layout had to change, that our warehouse had to change. That means our systems of operations had to change. Just from changing what our mix is going to be, it's going to change the physical resources of the company, right? So then you look at salon design. Are we maximizing attraction? Do we have space that's not very attractive that we're tolerating? And then you look at, I put location again, because it's also the location of where everything is on the inside. Are you easy to do business with? Is it enjoyable to shop with you? What is it like to check out, check in, enjoy their favorite service of receiving a shampoo? What's the styling energy like of the salon? Are they good finishers? All of that is physical resources. And people are judging that. What's it feel like to be in your facility, right? We judge that. I had to go to the emergency room with our mother 3 weeks ago or so. And I don't think we'll go anywhere else now if our family needs it, because this facility, number one, was the most friendly we'd ever been to. Number two, they pride themselves on taking you immediately. Number three, the design and layout was very, very functioning. And I told him, I said, I don't think we'll go anywhere else. She had to be transferred to another hospital. But it put her at ease. It put my sister and myself at ease. And to say an emergency room experience was enjoyable, that those two things usually don't go together. But they make it that way. And I think it's really by design and the way they've thought about it, right?
Well, they're an interesting one because they chose to take all of the things that people intensely dislike
About emergency
rooms.
And say, we're going to do it differently.
Yeah. And for example, you can be driving down one of the main highways in in and around the Chicago area. And they post their wait time on a billboard.
Yeah.
And that's how proud they are of it. And you can drive right up and get right in, and it looks like
We didn't wait. She didn't wait 1 second.
Looks like you're going into a fine hotel rather than an emergency room. And the people are friendly. That's also something very different than most emergency rooms. So yeah, they made it a point to look at the market and say, what do people hate? Let's do the opposite, and I bet we can have a business. And how is that so different than any business or any salon?
No. Yes.
What is it that people dislike about a salon? Make a list. How can we make that our strength and go forward? Use the resources we have to make sure that takes place. How can we use the resources we have to make sure that the salon is laid out as it should be? What would make the boat go faster? You've heard that before, right? What would make the salon work better? Constantly looking for that improvement, and also anticipating, realizing, just like with the extensions here in our business, it affected all of those things Terry mentioned, and it also affected all the way through our IT. I mean, it was a major challenge to our IT and operations to be able to prepare for that and make that happen, because a PSC client, Salon, has a different expectation than just anyone. So we couldn't just take on extensions and do it like everybody else.
Night lighting. I just want to say,
that's a big one.
I think that it's really important what you look like when you're closed. Even at PSC, everyone knows that there's a light that's over our logo. Everyone knows that the lights that are framing our front doors are on, our sconces, and then 2 lights in the store. That's it. But everyone knows it. That's how we close out our building every night, and that's how we look from the street. And you create an identity, how you look when you're open and how you look when you're closed. I was in a restaurant this last week, somewhere my mom likes to go. And I said, there's no music on. Yeah, if we play music, we can't hear anybody. That's what the staff said. But it was deafening, and it felt like a bad lunchroom, not a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
So but she talked about her own convenience versus the convenience of the customer, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, let's talk about the next one, human resources. You know, when you think about human resources, there's usually two talent pools. It's your new staff that you're going to be bringing on and your established staff. So let's look at both of them. Every class we teach, when we have owners in the room, we'll just do a quick rundown of everyone that's in the room. How many staff are you looking for right now? And I don't think we've ever had less than 30 be a number, right?
Right.
We go through, how many? I need 2, I need 4, I need 3. Someone might say, I'm good, and I think, oh, that's a silly answer. We're always looking for talent, but we're full right now, right? And then you go through and you keep looking at it. So the talent scout, who's doing that? What are we in need of? What are we looking for? How much time are we spending on looking for talent? How much time do we spend on developing new talent? Is it enjoyable being new here? And what are the accountability and the boundaries in place to be a new person here? This is usually an afterthought because the business is moving at a pretty nice pace. I've got a salon that I'm coaching right now that has 18 chairs. 15 of them are operated right now. This is a beautiful big salon. And one of the things I'm working on with her is I want her to expedite her training process, because I think she could lose talent because it's taking too long. So we're working on that right now. But these are the same questions you should be asking you. Your human resources can't rely all on you. You incorporate other people in. What are we looking for? Who's going to help me? How are we going to develop the new talent? And that's just on the new side. New is pretty understandable. Is that a word?
Understandable, yeah.
Yes, okay. It's understandable in understanding.
New team members will be understanding of.
For how long?
Right.
Okay? And the time in which they'll be tolerant is a lot less than what it used to be. Regardless if you went through training for 10 years, they're not going to do that. They're not going to do it for 2. And in many cases, we're hearing 1 year is too long now. So the talent pool for your established staff is coach up. Bring out the greatness in your team. And what we've said many times is commit to being their coach versus a cheerleader. And once again, what's their accountability of boundaries? You can get hooked on their service income and let them slide on rescheduling percentage. You can let them slide on their take-home dollar per guest. You can let them slide on being in compliance of their teamwork or team respect. Not good. It sets a really bad example. So what are we working on right now for human resources? And when I think about it, I wanted to talk about this. We recently are going through some leadership, parenting, reading, and it's really amazing what we've learned during. And I like it. The goal in the things that we're reading right now is that you want to be high warmth, high love, high boundaries, high accountability. That's your goal as a leader, as a parent, as a mentor. But what happens is the other 3 start to happen, and we'll talk about those a little bit as it pertains even to us. There's high warmth, love every second, love every minute, and with low boundaries. That's Steve. He is a big teddy bear, love every second. Big talks, love, right?
Yeah.
That's you. And he doesn't like to hurt anyone's feelings. He thinks if he gives them a big talk and there's an underlying message, he hopes they get it. If you say to Steve, how'd that go? I hope it went good. And he doesn't like that part. Then there's me. This isn't good either. Authoritative. Low warmth, no, not much love. That's not me. High boundaries. Get it done. What's the problem? What are you doing? And so I even see this in our parenting style. And the kids will know who's more tolerant and who will give in faster and who has a shorter fuse. They'll go to the longer fuse, which is Steve, and my fuse is this long, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your people do that in your leadership too. Then there's the last one, which is a person that just checks out. I've been here many times. Low warmth. I don't want to talk to anyone, and I don't care what you do. I just check out. I'm done trying to fight this battle. Too hard. I'm finished. That doesn't work either. So once again, the goal is to be high warmth, high boundaries, high structure, and have those 2 things work together. And it's not always easy. Some people can handle, they'll give you high boundaries, and but they also want high warmth. So what do you want to say to this?
I just think it's an interesting process to know yourself, and low boundaries doesn't necessarily mean that you have low boundaries. It means that you'll tolerate.
No, it doesn't mean you have low standards.
Right.
Yes, right? Very high standards still. You'll just tolerate, and maybe you forgive people for not having your standards, right? And then there's me, who thinks everyone should have my standards, right? So that's not good. So I'm really working on it. I'm even trying to say things differently to Jack instead of, and it says in one of the things, don't start a sentence with the word you, like you should have picked up your clothes versus, I'll be really proud of you if you pick up your clothes. I have to think, and then Jack will say, okay, I'll do that. And I think, oh my God, it really works. So high warmth, high structure. And I want you to just think, where do you fall into this? And most people who are hooked on income or have a hard time saying what their expectations are, not their standards. Remember, there's difference expectations. Okay. I just want to throw that in. Intellectual resources. I think you just Google everything. My favorite Google story is one day we were home and Jack was 2, so Tess should be doing this soon. All of a sudden he put a popcorn kernel in his nose. And it had to have been close to 10 o'clock at night, wasn't it? I remember. And I said, oh my God, I've got popcorn kernels, no sleep. Get in the car, we're going to the emergency room. And I said, Google quick. And we Googled, and it said, hold his nose, close his mouth, and blow into that one side of the nose. I did, and the kernel came flying out. And he said, thank you, right? And we just laughed. Google everything. If you have a question, put it in there. The other one is, one of the kids must have put soap in dish soap in the dishwasher. And I walked out to the kitchen and suds were everywhere. I Googled, what do you do? It said, throw 2 cups of vegetable oil in the dishwasher immediately. Dissolved it, just like that. So there's information at our fingertips all the time. Make sure, in order to build up your intellectual bank, that when you have a question, go find the answer, because you can find it. Also, when you think about intellectual, not only the things that your method of cutting, your method of service, your scheduling of guests, everything that you do, yes, is intellectual, proprietary information, but how do you protect that with your staff? And do you do contractual agreements or non-competes? Sometimes those don't stand up anywhere too, because we don't want to prevent anyone from an income or livelihood, but we certainly don't want it to be at the expense of our business as well. So I looked up these, some of them I hadn't even heard of, what they're talking about. Do you have a mentor? And what is their connection? And your connections. Everyone has this list of people they can pull from. So if you're having trouble finding an accountant, start using your connections to find someone, because what we find with most hairdresser owners is they don't know how to read an income statement, they don't know what a balance sheet is, and they don't know how to read their P&L, and they certainly don't know how to make adjustments to it. You might need a mentor and find someone and interview people to help you with your business. That's a good example. And then, of course, Harvard Business School has their reading list, the TED Talks, which we're big fans of.
Entree Leadership also has its book list, which is outstanding.
Good. Toastmasters, for people that are afraid to, they said, I don't want to go to the school and present my salon because I don't know how to speak. Well, maybe you need to go to Toastmasters so you can be a recruiter for your own school. There's improv classes. I don't know what this one is. Khan Academy. Have you heard of it?
It's like a Sylvan Learning.
Okay.
But it's mostly Khan Academy has a powerful website. Anybody helping their kids with homework's probably encountered Khan Academy.
Okay. Investopedia?
I'm guessing
Have
it's
you
an
used it,
encyclopedia for investment.
I haven't either. And then HubSpot Academy, podcast, Twitter list, and Harvard Business Review, the most reads. So we're talking about this because the stronger you get with the knowledge that knowledge doesn't equate to leadership, but knowledge makes you think about leadership many times in a different way. And your intellectual leadership about running your salon, what have you learned? What are you doing differently now than you did when you first opened? Had you known this, you would have been this much further along. You have no idea how you've grown in business over time, but it's always working on those lists for enhancements and improvements. Here's the one that they usually like to talk about, our financial resources.
Well, one thing before we leave that last topic is that in church yesterday, they were talking about prayer, and they were talking about intentional prayer, making time for meaningful prayer time versus texting prayer, which is kind of like, oh my God, this one isn't feeling well. God help them, right? Kind of like a text, just like you're texting God. I think that sometimes we do that with our education. I think sometimes we want to learn in the fewest characters possible, and versus intentional learning time, versus kind of how much time are you setting aside each day, each week, each month to keep you on the absolute edge of your profession. And what would it take? And are you just listening to whatever podcast comes up today? Or are you just happen to see an article and read it? Sure, we all stumble upon things like that have value. But are you intentionally going after the things that you need to be better at what you need to be better at? And I think that's the big difference. There's plenty of resources. Thinking about this topic, there's so many resources, but we've got to be better at getting better. And so when it looks to financial resources, I can tell you in all the years, 36 years now at PSC, we've had good banking relationships, we've had bad banking relationships, and we've had no banking relationships.
Even though we had a bank, there was no relationship.
Right, we had a bank. So what should you have? What do you want? Do you have a conversational relationship with a banker? Do you talk to your banker in good times and bad, not just in bad times when you need something? Sometimes bankers are kind of like our prayers, aren't they? We talk when we're desperate for something. And with a banker, they want to hear about what's going on in the good times too. The more they know about your business, the more they know about what you're working on and what you're dreaming about and the things, even if they don't fit into the picture at this point, even if you're lucky enough not to need anything from them, you still, that's when you're talking to them. So that in the points in time where you do have this opportunity to grow and put in salon number 2 or put in a men's grooming lounge or put in this, that, the next thing, that's when, yes, it'd be much easier to talk to that banker about those things. An accountant, I'll tell you, it's a grand weakness of our industry. Our industry doesn't have really good accounting firms to work with in most cases. And most people, most salons have a client or a family member or the wife of a family member or your grandmother do bookkeeping, not financial statements. And maybe once a year at tax time, they do a financial statement.
Template.
And so, I think there again, finding that right accountant can make such a difference.
Well, and I think sometimes we do this because we've been burned in the past or we didn't find any value in the relationship. Why spend the money when they're not providing any insight? Mm-hmm. And that makes sense. I mean, if it's going to be something that's just in compliance, I get it. So you find someone that will really work with you. We have 3 solid service relationships right now. Our banker is solid, our accounting is solid, and our legal is solid. And boy, that gives you comfort, right? And for a while we didn't say that. We weren't comfortable with our accounting. We were bouncing around a little bit till we found and locked in, and then we found a banking relationship that I like, that he even just calls me on the phone. How are you doing? Is there anything I need to know? What's going on? Do you need anything today? I love that. And it's the Mayberry concept.
It's funny. I had a conversation with one of our consultants last week who had a conversation with one of their salons. And this salon fired their accountant after a most recent meeting. And the meeting went something like this. There was an issue about use tax. And as a result of that issue about use tax, the accountant said, you should just, what I'm advising you to do is go buy the cheapest hair color that you can buy on the shelf from Sally's and stop buying from where you're buying to be able to save yourself use tax. And that's clearly someone that has no clue about the beauty business and shouldn't be advising a salon. And specifically, I mean, this was a significant salon. This was not a small business. Mm-hmm. This was a really significant salon. So you have to find someone that understands that the difference in the way money comes in. Money comes in services, and it comes in product sales, just as an example. And then the third kind really is gift card business. And all of those are treated different. All of those need to be treated different. They have, the service volume has a cost of labor. Mm-hmm. Its product cost is different than the cost of labor. A product that you sell, the biggest expense is your product. And a secondary expense is what you pay the people who sell the product. So when you look at that, you can't have someone that just lumps all products that are purchased together or lumps all revenues that come into the salon together, or you're looking at something that'll never make sense. So very important for again, a resource. Would you say, this is a moment of truth for all of you listening, would you say your banker's a resource that you can count on? Yes or no, quick, don't overthink it. Would you say that your accounting relationship is a resource? Yes or no? And then finally, how about your attorney? Is that attorney a resource?
And then even your landlord.
Well, that's a whole nother story. Yes.
Right? And when you're looking at the cost of goods or knowing your service labor and your support labor, I think sometimes we know what our rent payment is. And we know what we have to, where we're going to be. And some people think of that as a percentage. No, it's an expense. But where is it in terms of, in comparison? I mean, I've seen some rent that absolutely I thought, how did that landlord get away with charging you that? I mean, we've got a friend that's going through that right now. I talked to you about that. And it was a different business, but I said, you know, the going rate for this area is this kind of a rate, and he's well above it. And just tell him, I cannot pay you anything else. I can't justify the expense of anything else, even though you're trying to gouge me. I can't do it. And he did his research on it. And sometimes we don't do any research. We just think, how can we pay the rent? Right? And there's a big difference. And then, of course, compensation for profit. You know, we still got some people thinking they're going to be profitable at a 60% base commission. And we really encourage you to rethink that and look at it. And if you need some help, please contact us. But the highest we should be locking in without a service charge.
I wouldn't even go there because it depends on a unique situation.
It does. But 60 is never way too high.
In any case.
All right, education resources. You know, when you think about education, many times you can receive complimentary education from the brands you're affiliated with or your distributorship. You know, you want connection to the brand and connection to the outcomes you're looking for. So if you're looking for your hairdressers to be men's groomers, you're going to be looking who's providing that kind of education. And maybe you're wanting to celebrate the men's business and you're currently not doing that. Where are you going to be able to find, whether it's a distributorship or like ours, who is positioning ourselves to assist you to create a men's area in your business? So connection to the outcomes you're seeking. And you have to find that. You have to learn from the people that are doing things that you want to incorporate in your business. Fee-based education. I mean, from a house that offers education and fee-based at that weekly, I question sometimes the people that are positioned in these classes. Don't confuse productivity with activity. Sending someone to class, it's not just for them to sit and watch. It's for them to really take in the knowledge. How are you asking for the return on the investment? I think that's always a great exercise for you to talk about that.
Well, and it's something that we learned in the school business. We frequently, education is our business. So sending our team out for continuing education, we do a lot of it in-house where we bring the educators in. But there's also an awful lot of our education where we've always got somebody traveling somewhere for training.
And it's not cheap.
And it's not cheap. You've got their wages, you've got their travel expenses, their airfare,
their lodging,
hotel,
ground transportation,
all those things,
yeah.
Ground transportation both ways, in some cases luggage fees both ways.
And you're losing their productivity in your business.
And
everyone forgets that.
And you're paying for the education.
Exactly.
On top of it. So one of the things that we do is we have what's called an ROI form. And it's return on investment. It says we're a business, and if we're investing in your education, we're expecting a return on that. We know that you're traveling, and we know that you're investing your time, but we're investing money in you that you can take anywhere you go beyond this. So we'll list the class, we'll list the total expenses of it, all those things that Terry and I just talked about. So, what was the daily rate that we had to pay? What did we pay for education? What did we pay per diem? What did we pay in airfare? What did we pay in hotel? All of those different things. We come up with a fee. Then we come up with what materials were given, because those materials were part of the education, and those materials then belong, like if there's any CDs, DVDs.
That's intellectual property.
That's and that comes back to the school.
Right.
And it's intended to. So we have a way to receive that, and then we go over how does that information come back to the team, and set a date for it. When is that going to be shared at a town hall meeting where we have education, our staff education? How are they going to share that information with the rest of the team?
And you know what's funny about that to me is we would never spend the money to lose that individual. You don't send someone to hope they get it and stick around.
Right.
You send people to that kind of training that you believe in and that you know you're trying to take somewhere. You don't spend money on someone that they're hoping they're going, or they said, I don't know if this is for me. Well, let's send you to this class and maybe it will reignite you. I would never do that.
Right.
So think about that. What are you doing with your education budget, and what are you asking for in return? You spent a lot, and it's a lot more than they even realize. They think you went to, let's say it's a $600 class. Well, it's a whole lot more than that. By the time we got done, we invested $2,200 in that education. $600 was just the class fee.
Mm-hmm.
So you understand what we're looking for and how much we believe in you to spend this kind of dollar. You're putting in time, and we're putting in the educational resources for you.
The other thing is that we do have, and it's sometimes you can look at it and say this feels kind of juvenile, but even Terry and I signed this before we attend education for our schools, and it's an agreement. It's a pre-travel agreement for education, and it starts with things like I am not there to be a critic, which means I'm not there to find what's wrong with the class. I'm not there to come back and say, well, the hotel sucked, or the food was bad, or whatever the case may be. I said I'm there to bring back the most and best information I can. It says that I will be in bed each night at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock or midnight or whatever it is.
I wish it said 8.
And and the way we put it is we say I'll be in my own bed alone if we've got somebody that's traveling alone. And again, those are all sorts of things. There's a whole list, and then they sign at the bottom. And we don't send someone for training without doing that. It's important. And what it says is, it says
Code of conduct.
Also, I'll sit in one of the first 2 rows. That's one of the other agreements.
I always think that's so funny because when the whole school's signing it, everyone
Somebody's
can sit in the first 2 rows. I always thought that one was funny.
That one is. But
But there's also people that
I
walk
still
into a
look
class.
I look at pictures and I see where our team's sitting.
Well, and I also walk in when I'm going to teach, and usually the first rows aren't filled up, right? The people are trying to hide are sitting up there, and I go, oh, you're going to be a problem for me, right? Good. I like that. Emotional resources. God bless us. I mean, the emotional side, what triggers you? And when is it getting too much, or I just can't today. I'm going to check out, or I don't want to be an owner anymore. I've decided today at 2 o'clock I don't want to be an owner anymore, and then tonight at 5 o'clock I like it again. What are your emotional resources that you need to stay strong? Being an example, unfortunately, in this business, being an example is not enough. I mean, you have to have boundaries and guidelines for you and for your team. And right now, if I had to say, you're going to notice on this list, we didn't write anything that had to do about holding a pair of shears or applying color or a wash house or a consultation. What I can tell you is on this list, it's really developing confidence and helping people develop a presence. When you think about confidence, is something that's very, very contagious and attractive, and a lack of confidence is just that, the opposite of those things. And helping your team develop confidence and watching them is helping them be brought into a conversation. The other day, two young boys came to the door. And it's around that time. The football season's going to be beginning. They're going to start their two-a-days soon. And so the high school that our children are going to be going to, they knocked on the door and it's two football players. Ma'am, yes. We're selling, what do they call those? I can't.
Coupon books.
Coupon books or whatever. And I said, how much are they? $25. And I said, do you know if the softball team or the volleyball team are selling those? Because my niece is going to be playing volleyball. And if she's selling the same thing, I've got to buy from her. He said, no, I think they have something else. And I said, would you introduce yourselves, please? And he said, I'm such and such. I'm a senior. And the kid behind him was about 10 steps back. I'm a sophomore. I mean, he just hated every second of it. He didn't want to talk or anything. And they paired them up. They didn't send two seniors together.
Do you think that was by design?
Oh,
they
my
weren't brothers?
God. Well, they wouldn't have talked. No, they wouldn't have even spoken. If it was the two sophomores, he would have just stood there, waved the book at me, and said he did his job. But the senior, he had 3 years of doing it. He says, my third year going door to door. And I said, have a great season. What's your season going to be like? And he said, no one asks these questions. It's when you have the confidence to converse, you find a way to talk with another individual. They're not an object, right? They're a person. And you find out, I said, what position are you playing? And that sophomore goes, I don't know if I'm going to play yet. Oh, it was just the cutest thing. But the senior, you could tell, experience pays off if you lean in and someone teaches you how to do that. So you're teaching them to develop confidence and that presence. He didn't shake my hand or anything, but he said, hi, I'm part of the Manuka football team this year. And then I said, I only buy from winners, something stupid like that. I said, and is he going to have a good season? He said, I think so. I think we're going to put up some good numbers this year. And he was dressed appropriately. The other kids looked a little sloppy. It almost looked like he had wake-up hair, wake-up face. And you teach them how to speak, chat, converse. And it's the eye test. You're looking right at him and saying, is this put together? When I come home, I'll say to him, gosh, we got to work on this. I mean, they just don't know how to help ignite energy. And you're looking from that. Some of the owners carry all the energy in the room. That's tough. It's a big responsibility versus teaching other people to have that energy too. And of course, how are we going to limit the distractions? What are the emotional resources is really helping our team, whether it's in that Saturday morning meeting, hey, let's empty the jug right now. What's in the jug right now that's bottling you up? Let's get rid of some of that stuff and let's this be a safe place today. What do we need from each other? And that's helpful, right? Good. I think about this, and probably because my first name is in both of them. My mother used to call me Terrific Tear and Terrible Tear. Which one are you today? And I told her I'd let her know. And but intentions are terrific. I don't think I meet an owner that doesn't have wonderful intentions. I mean, they're visionary. If they didn't have intentions, they would have never opened their business. The trouble is their execution is terrible. They never get to it. And we have to say, how are we teaching that? Are we using our resources to execute? If everything is going to rely on you, and you want to be the project captain of every single thing that's happening, and knock yourself out. How's that working for you? Or do you use your resources to accomplish? Everyone can say, oh, he's so smart. She's so smart. Yeah, we shouldn't get anything done. We still look exactly the same as we did a year ago. Execution for us is terrible. We don't have those enhancements that are happening. So where are you? Where's your staff? Look at your intentions and your execution. And when you butt up, they're celebrating, I posted Pat Summit, they're celebrating her birthday, I believe, and they were showing some clips from her and her staff. She was all about execution. It's not, I don't care how well you know how to play defense or tell me the plays, it's how you execute that I don't care how much you know, I want to know how much you execute. And there is a big difference with that. It's not how much you know. And I've said this to Steve before, knowledge is not leadership and knowledge is not execution. Knowledge just means you know, but how are you executing? Next. We did this in the last one. Did I write this in a letter recently? Yeah, hope is not a strategy. I'm hoping to get better on this. I'm hoping we're going to be better next year. I hope that is not a strategy, and that's not a form of execution. That's fingers crossed, right? And when you look at what we're trying to accomplish using our resources, do we have the people in the best position? You know, even going to a softball game, I question a coach's leadership, just watching 14-year-old girls play ball, and I'll say, why is that girl playing left field?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have her in left field if my life depended on it. She can't catch a ball. She doesn't know how to run. She doesn't know how to shag a fly. She runs at the ball after it lands, not with it in the air, and she just doesn't have the hustle. The eye test is poor. And is he hoping she's getting better this season? I don't know. I mean, look at her stats. Or you look at her shortstop, makes 3 years in a row, and a coach doesn't go out to the mound and say, come here. What are we doing today? We need to have a conversation. Time out. And there's times that we can have a hairdresser have 5 guests in, didn't reschedule any of them, didn't suddenly take them, and that's like 3 errors at shortstop. But why didn't we call time out, and why didn't we have a conversation about it? So I put this in again too, because when you look at it, once again, where are we feeling safe and in control and not threatened? It's usually in the comfort zone. We're just safe. I mean, it's not horrible. We're not making any changes, but we're in control with what is. And then the fear, we're finding the excuses, be affected by others' opinions, or someone might get mad. That's my favorite. Someone might pout. Then the learning zone is we got to deal with the change in problems. We have to execute. We have to understand, and we have to push ourselves beyond our means in a good way. Push ourselves beyond our comfort zone. And then the bottom one on the, what's that word up there, Brian? Is it group zone or
Growth.
Growth zone. Sorry, I can't see my own stuff. You got to find your purpose and set new goals and conquer new objectives. Well, you know, with us adding extensions, that requires a whole new bank of talent for us as a company. What are going to be the most popular colors? I would guess, this is me just saying this, are the colors and extensions going to match the top performers in hair color for us? I don't know. That's a guess.
Yeah.
I haven't heard differently yet, but I'm thinking, I wonder if they're going to mirror each other in some way. Don't know. So we now have to set new goals and conquer objectives. I mean, we're going after white space that we haven't had before. And now we're looking at, based on what we talked about, and the enhancements of facility and people, systems, and services. You know, you look at, you got 6 months. What did Jack say to us yesterday? What did he say?
Which one?
Yesterday, he goes, as of today, right now, it was the 30th of June, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, we are halfway done in the year.
That's right.
Officially. He said, the year is halfway complete. And I thought, oh my God, are we where we need to be? Are he and I where we need to be? Are we hitting some of our objectives at home? Are we hitting our objectives with family? Are we hitting our objectives with business? And the different businesses, whether it be the school and PSC, and what changes do we want to take place? And what does our travel look like for the next 6 months? And by the time I turn around, it's going to be 2020, right? Christmas tree's going to go right back up.
Yep. I'm ready to bring it up.
It's in the garage. We'll just bring it right in, right? So what do your plans look like? And when is new talent coming on? When you have to hire somebody else? What is that education for the rest of the year? What do your promotions have to be? And remember, your staff wants to know they're in good hands with you and using your resources. I think one of my favorite stories was using my resources, probably the worst one I ever had. And there's more. I mean, I remember when UPS went on strike and you said, okay, we're not going to get alarmed. We're going to do 4 zones. we're going to do this. Everyone, did you drive too, Brian? We all drove different things, different vehicles, and we went to Indy. I remember you and I went in a UPS truck, and Chrissy and Mike were in the other one, and we had a flat tire in the one, and we had to empty out the trucks right on 65 in the heat. It was horrible. But I had one in the restaurant, and it was a Friday night around 7:30, prime time. Restaurant was completely full. All the reservations were in, and we're now just going to wait and tell people we have a wait. They can eat in the bar. And 20 people walked in for a wedding rehearsal dinner. And I said, the hostess said, the whatever family's here for the rehearsal dinner. And I said, we don't have a reservation for them. Now this is their family's rehearsal dinner for the weekend. They're getting married tomorrow. And I remember Tom just saying, use your resources, use your resources. And Mike Savaris taught me that too. Just what can you do? Just start looking around. Even if you have to move a table and buy their whole dinner, it's better than losing a party of 20. What are you going to do? And I looked all around, and the lounge wasn't completely full yet. And there was a whole second level up there, 2 levels, one up, one down. And I walked in and I thought, I can put 5 tables together up there, throw linens on there, candle service, give them free champagne. And I thought, oh, what am I going to do? Because how do I tell them we have no record of their reservation? And so I said, can I see the 2 fathers of the groom and the bride? I knew I didn't want to see the mothers because, of course, they're all crazy people. And the men came up and I said, I have something to tell you. But I had my options available to them. And I said, I have no record of your reservation, but I don't want you to go anywhere. This is what we can do. We can take the second level of the lounge, turn it into something very romantic. Live music will be coming in shortly that can add to your atmosphere. I'll have champagne and appetizers on the tables for you at our cost, and blah, blah, blah. And the father said, that's great. I said, give me a couple more minutes, we'll have it all done. And you go to your staff and you don't say, well, everyone's screaming. You say, get these 5 tables up, put linens on, through candles, get ice buckets there, get champagne out there, get fruit glasses on the tables, and I'll talk to you about it later on, and we'll decide how could this have happened and correct the problem later. You use your resources. And that's what I always remember. What can we do? What do we have available right now to fix this issue or to make it better? And what is your panic reaction like? Do they look at you and think, what can you, are you thinking? Yeah, I'm thinking. Let me think about it. And sometimes I think, I don't have an idea. Does anyone have one? But it's not to panic. It's to respond.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not always easy. But what can you do? And I think there's a lot of, sometimes there's an empty station, or we can move someone over here, or we can team up and throw color here, or what can we do? And I think people are starting to learn how to communicate with their guests. We've made an error. Not, we never got your reservation. That's how I would never say that. I am showing no record of your reservation. We've made a terrible error on our side. And I'm so sorry, but we're going to make it right. We don't want you to go anywhere else. We understand this is a big family celebration and not a date you can get back. Can't go to Bob Evans now for your family, or the IHOP for your rehearsal dinner. I have to be able to respond with confidence and make them feel like $1 million after it's done. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you think? Brian, you think anything? Brian's our sounding board, like with the guys on sports,
right.
Sports channel, they sit in the booth. But you're supposed to be giving me stats all the time. I think you're supposed to say.
Well, we don't have an earpiece.
We'll have to get an earpiece.
No, get an
for you.
earpiece, and I'll just put in there, Brian said this, Brian said that. What are you thinking about?
You talk
Good?
about your timeline? Or is that just for reference?
This is just for reference, but
Second half of the year?
what's it look like? Ours is aggressive for the rest of the year. Good education coming up, and of course adding this and celebrating the men's category. It's not going away. I think Target's getting ready to position the men's areas, right? And are we ready to respond?
1,000 stores.
Yeah. Are we responding accordingly in our salons? A lot of good things happening. A lot of good things.
That's the thing. You know, I don't know how many of you work with Google Alerts, but I just put keywords into Google Alerts and you get
What
updates
is that?
every day on those things.
Where do you put the alerts at?
Set them up in Google.
Okay, good. Good for you. You and Brian do it all. You're just the smartest on the Googles.
No. If you want to do it, it's worth looking up.
I would love to do it.
Google, set up Google Alerts and it'll give you a step by step by step.
Okay, I'll do it.
But it's worth it because you get information. So obviously right now I'm interested in many things, and one of which is the men's business. I want to keep learning on that. And every day, I think about 2 o'clock, I get 2 emails that have all these different links in it to what's being said around the world about the men's grooming industry.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, to say it's growing is an understatement. To say that the majority, I want to say the majority of what I read every day about the men's businesses, it's happening outside of the professional salon industry.
Oh, how dare we let that happen?
How could that happen? How could that happen? How could we let business grow like it's growing outside of our business, outside of our doors? Think about who you opened your business for.
Well, and if you think about, not that it's bad, but salons decided that they didn't want to be finishers and stylers, and they left room for the dry bars, right? I saw the lady on Shark Tank the other day, the entrepreneur that started that, and she found, you know, she went in and said, what do hairdressers hate doing? And maybe it's styling hair. She said, oh, you hate that? Well, we're going to love it then, right? You hate it, we're going to love it. And then look at all these specialty shops. I never thought there'd be only bundt cakes when I was growing up, or there'd be only.
And they're good.
Oh, they're good. Yes, I could go for one tonight. But they made a category out of bundt cakes, and now bundt cakes are a celebration for birthday parties at home, right? Go buy the bundt cake so you don't have to make a cake, and you go in there and they've created everything that you don't have to think. That's what people want. They want one decision and someone else thinking on their behalf and being the expert. Gotta love it. Use your resources.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next month.
Have a great month.
Happy 4th.